When humanity unlocked dark matter technology, everything changed. The signal in the dark. Dr. Amara Chen had spent 11 years chasing a ghost. Not a literal ghost, she wasn't superstitious, but the invisible scaffolding that astronomers called dark matter. It made up more than a quarter of the universe, bent light around galaxies, held entire clusters of stars together like glue, and yet no human being had ever touched it, seen it, or captured a single particle of it in a detector. It was 2:14 a.m. at the Deep Horizon Laboratory, buried 4 kilometers beneath the Nevada desert in an old mining shaft repurposed for particle physics. Amara was alone in the control room, nursing lukewarm coffee, watching numbers scroll past on 6 monitors, when the anomaly detector screamed. 2. Building the key. It took 6 more years, 6 years of grants, skepticism, late-night arguments in seminar rooms, and one very public paper retraction, before Amara's team, now grown to 200 researchers across 11 countries, built the first resonance chamber. The theory, once it clicked into place, was almost embarrassingly elegant. Dark matter didn't ignore ordinary matter because it was fundamentally separate. It ignored ordinary matter because the two interacted only through gravity and a vanishingly rare resonance channel, a narrow frequency at which dark matter particles would briefly couple with normal matter and exchange energy. Amara's team hadn't discovered dark matter. They'd discovered its doorbell. The resonance chamber was a ring 300 meters across, lined with supercooled crystal lattices tuned to that exact frequency. When it powered on for the first time, nothing visible happened.
No flash, no roar.
Just a steady, humming stillness, and a power meter that showed the chamber was generating energy, more than it consumed, pulled from a source no cable connected to. They had tapped the dark sector of the universe. News of the breakthrough leaked before the peer review even finished. Within a month, dark energy extraction was a phrase spoken on every news channel on Earth. Within a year, 17 nations had their own chambers under construction. Within 5 years, the world didn't run on oil, coal, or even fusion anymore. It ran on the invisible scaffolding of the cosmos. 3. A world remade. The changes came fast, faster than any energy revolution before it. Cities that had rationed electricity for decades blazed with light. Desalination plants that once cost more to run than the water they produced turned deserts green. Continents once divided by fuel scarcity found themselves, for the first time in history, standing on equal footing. Dark matter didn't care about geography. It was everywhere, a uniform haze filling every corner of the galaxy, which meant every nation had access to the same endless well. But energy was only the beginning. Dark matter, it turned out, had properties beyond power generation. Because it barely interacted with ordinary matter except through resonance, it could be shaped into fields that passed through steel, concrete, and flesh without resistance, fields that could, with enough precision, support weight. The first prototype hoverbike wobbled through a hangar in sole 8 years after Amara's midnight discovery. Within a decade, cargo ships the size of small towns floated silently above the Pacific, untouched by waves, needing no fuel but the dark hum of the universe itself. Medicine transformed too. Dark matter imaging could map the human body at a resolution optical and X-ray scanners could never approach, revealing disease before a single symptom appeared. Surgeries that once required opening a chest could be performed with resonance fields reaching precisely to a single cell cluster, leaving the rest of the body untouched. And then came the ships. 4. Beyond the sky. If dark matter could lift a cargo hauler off the ocean, engineers reasoned, it could lift something far heavier, off the Earth entirely. The first dark drive vessel, Chris and Halcyon, left low orbit 9 years after the chamber first hummed to life. It carried no chemical fuel. It didn't need to fight gravity in the old, brutal way, burning tons of propellant to claw free of the planet. Instead, it rode a resonance field that let it treat the dark matter permeating all of space as something to push against, a medium as real and as usable as water beneath a boat's hull. Halcyon reached the moon in 6 hours. A crewed mission to Mars, once a decade-long engineering nightmare requiring years of preparation and months of transit, took 11 days. Amara, older now, grey threading through her hair, stood in a crowd at the launch site the day Halcyon first left the pad. She watched the ship rise without the thunder and fire of old rockets, just a low, resonant hum, and a shimmer in the air like heat over summer asphalt, and then it was gone, arcing up into a sky that no longer felt like a ceiling. She thought of that 2:14 a.m. alarm. She thought of the coffee she'd spilled and never cleaned up. She hadn't known, back then, that she was opening a door for the entire species. The cost of the dark. Not everything about the new world was gentle. Dark matter technology didn't distinguish between a hospital and a weapon. The same resonance fields that could support a floating city could, with different tuning, punch through armor plating as though it were paper. The same energy abundance that ended fuel wars created new tensions over who controlled the rarest resonance crystals, materials that, unlike dark matter itself, were not evenly distributed across the Earth. 3 new nations rose from old borders in the resource scramble that followed. 2 wars were fought, brief, brutal, and unlike anything before them, since a soldier with a resonance disruptor could down a city's power grid in an instant, plunging millions into an old kind of darkness while the invisible universe hummed on, indifferent, just out of reach. There were philosophical costs too. Religions that had built cosmologies around the visible heavens now grappled with a universe mostly made of something unseen and unknowable, something humanity had learned to use before it had learned to understand. Philosophers debated whether tapping the dark sector was humanity's greatest triumph or its most reckless act, reaching into the scaffolding of the cosmos without knowing what, if anything, depended on it staying untouched. Amara herself was asked, in interview after interview, whether she regretted the discovery. She always gave the same answer. Regret was a luxury for people who believed the door could have stayed closed. Someone would have found the doorbell eventually. She was simply glad it had been her hand that rang it first, because she, at least, had spent a career learning to be careful. 20 years on. 2 decades after the alarm in the Nevada desert, Amara Chen, now the reluctant public face of an entire technological era, stood on the observation deck of a station orbiting Jupiter, watching dark drive ships thread between the gas giant's moons like fireflies. Humanity had not solved its oldest problems. There was still greed, still cruelty, still the slow grinding work of trying to be better than the previous generation. Dark matter hadn't fixed human nature. It never could have. But it had done something else. It had given the species room to grow food in places that used to be desert, room to heal bodies that used to be beyond saving, room to leave the gravity well that had held every human ancestor since the first breath of the species, and go see what else was out there. Amara pressed her palm against the cool viewport glass and looked out at a solar system that no longer felt so large. Somewhere behind her, a new generation of researchers was already chasing the next ghost, a fainter signal, buried even deeper than dark matter, hinting at something stranger still waiting in the scaffolding of reality. She smiled. The universe, it turned out, kept very good secrets. But it also, if you listened carefully enough, kept ringing the doorbell. All you had to do was answer. The end.